So, welcome to session 5, which is community engagement. I feel as though community engagement, participatory science, and community participation in our air quality efforts have been an ongoing theme. So, I am really excited for this next and last session before we wrap up this incredible past 2 days. So, as a reminder, my name is Deja Wall. I am with Clean Air NC. And joining me in moderation will be Abhilash Biyahan, who is the Director of Transportation, Climate, and Community Air Quality Programs for Sonoma Technology. So as I mentioned, we do have 6 speakers for this next session. So again, just as a reminder to try to keep that to 15 minutes so we can have some time for questions if it allows. Again, as a reminder, we encourage everyone to engage through the chat and the Q&A feature. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Our first presentation will be Juan Flores, and he is the Community Air Monitoring Program Manager and oversees Air Alliance Houston's efforts to bring community-led air monitoring to neighborhoods affected by multiple air pollution sources, working closely with residents on the campaign. So Sean, I'm going to Juan, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and allow you to do that now.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending where you're at. Hope everybody's doing well. Sorry, guys, I'm a little under the weather. The allergies are killing me out here in Houston right now. So I'm with Airlines Houston. I've been with them for almost 10 years, and I've been working with the community air monitoring part of it for the last 4 years. And I started not knowing very much about it till learning the hard way, up and downs on how everything works. So it's been a kind of a live by experience type thing. So let me share my screen real quick so I can get started. Okay, here we go. Sorry, guys, give me 1 second. All right, here we go. All right, guys. So I live in Houston, Texas. There's our beautiful city there in the background. We are the energy capital of the world, as some people call us. We live with pollution all around us. You know, there's many different types, and depending on the communities we work in, every community is unique. So, Houston area pollution obstacles that we have refineries, we have a lot of transportation. Houston has no zoning. Um, we have lots of concrete batch plants. We have metal recyclers. We have foundries, and one of the things about Texas, as the U.S. is going through this new administration changes, Texas is very red state. So constantly battling against the industry and the politicians in the area sometimes to try to create change and try to improve our communities. So it's not an easy easy battle that we have, but we do the best that we can. So dealing with the government is not an easy thing. Then we have the double-edged sword of industry and residential conflicts of interest. There's a lot of people that live here in Houston that live near the shadows of the refineries, but there's a lot of people that also work for them. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. At one point, people are making money off of it. At the other point, people are getting sick and having to deal with all the effects of it. So that's a little synopsis of what we're dealing with here in Houston. Our air monitoring program that we started here about 4 years ago, uh, the air monitors that we have are located inside the communities that we work in. Right now, we're in 9 communities in Houston that we're working with and working inside of. Purpose of the air monitors is to educate people on how the network works, how they can use it. Residents can use these air monitors to make decisions about their health. I know I use it a lot. Is today a good day to go outdoors and do some jogging? Take a bike ride. My kids want to go play outside. Take a look at the air monitors and make a decision if it's a good day for them to be outdoors. And if you have people that are seniors that have health effects, this is also very helpful tools they can use to try to make decisions on their health impacts. Residents have been using the data to submit complaints for lawsuits involved against industry, have community meetings in each neighborhood to share the results of the data gathered at a 1-year period. And I'll go into that a little bit more here momentarily. So Uh, I'm primarily commentating on the dashboard, the action plan on this particular one, but just an overview of how the program works overall. Whenever we decide to go into a community, we have a kind of a process that we do. First, we meet with the community to see what their needs are and what they're going through. So we meet with the community. Then we have a community mapping session in which we'll invite community members to come out to a meeting. Most of the time, we'll put up a map out in front of everybody and let the community members come up and tell us, where they suspect some of the air, some of the pollution in the community is coming from, and we let them tell us where it's at, and then we take that information back, and then we analyze it a little further to make a decision of where would be some good spots to have the air monitoring networks in the community. Then once we get all that together with the community input, we recruit air monitoring hosts, and then we go install them. We it's not the easiest thing to recruit people sometimes because the monitors that we use a combination of, I don't know, we have purple airs, we have some Sensit S pods, we got some Sensit wraps, and we have a couple of quants in there as well. So we kind of use different tools depending on what air pollution we're trying to capture in that particular neighborhood. So we do that. We also have a program with us that we do with the communities called Air Ambassadors. We like to hire people that live in the community that we're working in to help us spread the word, install monitors, and educate people. So that's something I'll talk a little bit more about here momentarily. Then we educate the community on their network, how to use it. We gather the data for a year. Then we come back and share the results with the community. And then, and then after that, we create a community action plan. And then we continue the program and implement the action plan. So let me go a little more detail. So first thing I want to go into is our dashboard. We recently, if you guys, I'm sure everybody here has dealt with this. Every monitor you deal with has their unique dashboard. This one of our Sensit dashboard that we use. We have like 13 ramps spread around the Houston area, and then this is the purple air. Primarily most of these are ours. Combined right now here in the Houston area, we have over 60 air monitors spread out throughout Houston. You can see here on the east side, Channel View has a bunch of has a good amount of them that we started as a community very much in need. You got Baytown, Pasadena, so we got them spread out around the Houston area. So our biggest issue was trying to, get all this together under one roof for us to be able to use and share with the community. So we recently created our own custom dashboard. It's on our Air Alliance website. And this dashboard has brought all our monitors together under one roof in which people can come and look at our website and take a look at what's going on. With this dashboard, as you can see, this is the top of it here. Right off the bat, it tells you what the current high pollutant alerts are. So if there's something in the red or above in the community, right away it'll flag it and it'll show it right away to the people that are here. For the people that live in the community, so they can see exactly what's going on in the community and what's affecting them. As you can see, it has a breakdown there of the NO2, VOCs, PM. It just depends on the monitor they have in the community, and it flags it to what's going on. But the other thing about this dashboard is really unique. It's broken down by neighborhood. So if people live in Baytown or Pasadena, they can go and click on here and go straight to their neighborhood so they can get a more custom view of what's going on in their neighborhood in real time. So that's one thing about it. And once you click on the dashboard, you can see all the monitors in the area. They can click on it, it gives you more detail, what the AQI. You can break it down by VOC, you can break it down by NO, PM, depending on what you're looking for. And as you can see there, you click on it, it shows you the graph of what is done the last couple of days. So you can get an idea of what the trends are. And like I said, it has the AQI here from each monitor, and it shows where the high levels are at any particular time in these neighborhoods, and it gives you that. And just a little more detail, I just couldn't see it before. So like I said, this is a new dashboard that we just opened up here in January. We're in the process of advertising this new dashboard and getting people to know, how it works. I was telling you earlier that we have an Air Ambassador program in which we hire people in the community. There in that center picture, you'll notice myself sitting here in the middle with the air monitoring ambassadors that we have in each community. We have at least one in each community. Sometimes we have two, and they go out there and educate the community on what's going on. But right now, as we're advertising our new air monitoring dashboard, we've been going around the neighborhoods and putting up these QR code posters around libraries, around schools, and we also have postcards we've been sending out and sending this out to the people because like I say, what's the point of having a community monitoring network if people don't even know it's there and people don't know how to use it? So we're using this campaign in conjunction with the air ambassadors and the posters and the postcards to educate people. You have this tool. This is how you use it. This is what you can do with it. And just by clicking on this QR code, they can go straight to the page and take a look at it. So this is something that we're using as we speak. And so we're trying to educate people on what their dashboard is and how they can use it. And I was telling you earlier that once a year we go back to these communities and we have a community meeting in which we share the results of what has been found in their community. During the 1 year process, we can see the trends. We can see, some of the things going on in the community. This is just an example of one we did over in Galena Park, JC, which this community is located right on the Port of Houston to the north of all the industry. And I mean, if you can look at some of the examples of it, I mean, the NO2 is off the charts there, as well as the PM averages are constantly above EPA standards. So, that's been the hard part, is trying to educate people on what's going on, because I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys here have been to community meetings, and you can see people's, eyes glaze over as you start speaking, about chemicals, PM and NO2, butadiene, hydrogen cyanide. And it's been the hardest thing for us to try to educate people on how bad this stuff is, because like you guys know, it might not affect you right there and then, but eventually with time it will affect you, and it can hurt people. So after the community meetings are done, we people be looking at us like, well, so what? Now what? What we going to do about it? We've been working on creating these action plans. This is an action plan that we created in Pasadena, Texas. And what we do is, after we share the results of what we found for the year, we as a community, I mean, us and the community, get together and we brainstorm and create an action plan on what we want to do to try to combat some of the stuff that we found in our data. And for example, this was one that, in Pasadena, they live so close to the refineries that they always have a hard time having to deal with it. And, they decided that they wanted to notify more residents as these alerts came out. Because, I mean, believe it or not, living so close to them, we get shelters in place, we get explosions, we get releases, we get all that stuff. And most people don't know about it. So they created an action plan to try to as neighbors, to contact their neighbors and let them know whenever something came up, go outside and tell the kids that are playing outdoors, go outdoors, take shelter. So each community is unique. Each community is different. So we try to customize each action plan. And then, we set a timeline on when we want to accomplish these goals. And then we do our best to accomplish them, to try to improve the the action plan that we created to try to combat some of these pollution problems. So I know I'm running out of time, so let me go a little faster here. Um, Something that we do supplemental to help out these communities, we do a program called Sampling the City, in which we do bike rides through these communities. And as we're doing the bike rides, we wear air monitors, little flow air monitors. Some people are wearing them, and we ride through the communities. And as they're riding through all different parts of the community, we're taking samples of what the monitors are capturing. At the same time, we're going to a bike ride telling the history of the area. We did a haunted tour right before Halloween, telling ghost stories of the area. So we make it fun, and at the same time, we're explaining to people as we pass up industry on what is going on around them. And then later on, we'll share the results of what we captured, and we'll send it out to all the participants so they can know. There's another supplement to it, just to give people a fun thing to do, and also, get good exercise, but at the same time, pick up and learn what's going on with the pollution in their area. Um, Looking ahead as we speak right now, we're advertising our dashboard, but we're in the process of recording some PSA videos and customizing it for each community to so they can learn what they're dealing with in their community with pollution, and also how to use their network. This year, we're hoping to start a canister sampling program in a couple of the neighborhoods that are really that are fence line. So we're working on trying to get that situated, hopefully here in the next couple of months. You know, we're trying to work on starting a reporting system. A lot of people call us when there's, you know, people call me sometimes real late at night. It smells really bad. Can you please check my data? And so we've been going back and forth, but we're working on creating a system now that whenever somebody needs a printout or they have a complaint of an emissions event, that we can get that to them even quicker. So we're working on establishing a process in which we can get that to them so they can use their data from their monitor to submit complaints to the right authorities for us to make a difference. And then the other thing we'll be doing this year is doing education presentations, and particularly customizing what the chemicals are highest in each community and concentrating on that to educate people what PM does to you health-wise and all that together. So let me see. That's all I got. I think I've gone to 15 minutes already. I wish I had more time, but please, let us know if you have any questions, and we continue to work and expand and get better as we do as time goes by. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Juan. This is actually my third time seeing you present, and I just love learning something new each time and seeing the evolution of your work at Air Alliance. You guys are doing incredible work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like we have a few questions in the chat. So yeah, feel free to answer those directly in the Q&A feature. Our next presenter is Kelvin Yeboah, who is, excuse me, a member of the Public Health Research Group at the Department of Biomedical Sciences at the University of Cape Coast. He is also a project coordinator at Breathe Accra Project and the Ghana Urban Air Quality Project, also known as Ghana AQ. So Kelvin, I will pass it to you. I don't see Kelvin in the chat. We'll look at getting him in if he is in. But for now, we'll just move on to, and this for the sake of time, Lilian Liu, who is a third-year PhD student from the Department of Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences at the University of Washington. Her research focuses on wildfire exposure assessment. And her co-presenter is Dr. Shirley Huang, who is a research scientist from DEOHS with expertise in particle and noise exposure assessment and spatial analysis. I will pass the floor to you all.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Deja, for giving us the amazing introduction. And in the meantime, let me figure out how to share my screen and make sure everybody can see it. All right. Great. So we're going to go ahead and get started, sharing a presentation on the rapidly deployable tent-based exposure system to support the low-cost sensor air quality sensor application in our communities. And I wanted to take a second to just thank everybody, the organization community, to put so much effort to make this alternative workshop happen. So today the presentation will be hosted by me and my co-presenter Shirley Huang, and we're from the University of Washington Department of Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences. So I'll hand the presentation to Shirley.
Yeah, thanks Lilian for the introduction. So let's get started on the background of our talk. So since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, our group has multiple studies on evaluating air cleaning technologies such as HEPA air cleaners and box fan filters, especially in environments with limited ventilation, such as congregate living settings like homeless shelters that were particularly at risk for infectious disease transmission. So back in 2020, in response to this, Public Health, Seattle and King County deployed around 4,000 HEPA air cleaners in those homeless shelters with federal funds. And while this was a major public health intervention, it raised some key questions such as whether these air cleaners were actually help improving indoor air quality in those shelters. So next slide, please. So to answer these questions, we collaborated with Public Health Seattle and King County to design a natural experiment to monitor indoor and outdoor air quality with air sensors in those homeless shelters and assess air cleaner usage by measuring their energy consumption. And then we examine whether higher usage or higher energy consumption of those air cleaners were correlated with improved indoor air quality. So before we deploy those air sensors in the shelters, we needed to verify their accuracy in a controlled environment. So that's what we call calibration. Next slide, please. So sensor calibration is typically done in the lab grade exposure chamber, but during the pandemic, these chambers were usually inaccessible due to lab closures, safety restrictions, and being repurposed for COVID-19 research. And even when these facilities were open, social distancing rules and the backlogs made testing impractical in our case. So that's why we started to look for a low-cost, flexible alternative to test air sensors without relying on this expensive lab infrastructure. So instead of purchasing a traditional stainless steel lab-grade chambers, which costs around $6,000, we turned to a more portable and affordable solution, which is a grow tent that is typically used for indoor gardening. And for just $300, we built a tent-based exposure system that functioned like a lab chamber at a fraction of the cost. While the tent provides an enclosed testing environment similar to a lab-grade chamber, it does not have the same level of sealing and is more prone to air leakage. Also air exchange rate can influence some experimental outcomes. So conducting a baseline assessment of the grow tent's air exchange characteristics was an important step in our study. Next slide, please. So the setup of this tent-based exposure system is pretty straightforward. Because this system is portable, it can be easily set up on any open ground to begin testing. And to simulate real-world air pollution condition, we generated test particle using a smoke gun and wood chips and inject them into the tent. And inside the tent, we co-located our air sensors, which are the purple air sensors in our case, with other lab-grade particle monitoring instruments. And then we measure the particle concentration using both low-cost air sensors and the lab-grade instrument inside the chamber and compare their readings and to develop calibration models based on the collected data. Next slide, please. So with the same system, we also tested different air cleaning technologies in a controlled settings. So in the upper left corner of the slide, you can see an air cleaner deployed at one of the homeless shelters with the visible layers of dust accumulated on its filter. So to understand how this dust buildup will affect air cleaners' filtration efficiency, we conducted a follow-up study using the same tent-based exposure system. So for this testing, we placed the air cleaner with varying amount of dust-loaded filters inside the tent and expose them to smoke to see whether their filtration efficiency decreases as dust accumulation increases. Next slide, please. So now that I've covered how we developed and applied this system for sensor calibration and air cleaner testing, I'll transition our presentation to Lilian Liu, and she'll discuss how we extended this approach to evaluate DIY box fan filter and its application to community air quality research.
Thank you so much, Shirley, for the comprehensive introduction of our tent-based low-cost system. So basically, Shirley and I, we are based in Seattle, Washington, which is on the Pacific Northwest coast. And as many of you guys know, that the Western US is highly impacted by the wildfire smoke events annually. And the trend of the wildfire events is increasing both in intensity, the frequency, as well as the duration. And so I think back in late 2024, we received a request at the Center of Environmental Health Equity, our CHE Center, based in the University of Washington, from Central Washington, a tribal group that they would like us to prepare some educational material as well as some handouts to facilitate their community-wide support for the wildfire mitigation strategies. So we thought that we had this tent-based system and we wanted to test how the DIY box fan filter, which costs a fraction of a standardized commercial HEPA air cleaner on cleaning the indoor air during wildfire smoke period. So again, as Shirley mentioned, the tent-based system is an alternative to the stainless steel chamber, which is only costs a fraction of the expense and is modular, which basically translates that the tent is easy to build up, it's easy to take down, and it doesn't take a lot of space when we're doing the experiment. And it's also easy to assemble and portable. And paired up with the tent system, we had low cost particle sensors to test the indoor air quality. And in the pictures on the right, on the top left, we have the DIY box fan, where you can easily purchase a box fan at your local Home Depot or your grocery store. And paired up on the front inlet of the fan, we had a MERV 13 rated filter attached with with duct tape on it to use as a DIY filter system to clean the indoor air. And on the top right and the bottom left, we have a low cost purple air sensor where EPA uses it for the air quality network monitoring. On the bottom right, we have the picture where we did our DIY box fan filter testing. So basically, and sorry, and I forgot to mention on the bottom left of this the slide, we have a manuscript in preparation to describe our work. So basically, what we found, instead of focusing on the results that we had over here, we would like to share that with the low-cost sensor system as a low-cost tent system, our results are very, very similar to a testing condition that was employed by the Admiral Holder et al. From EPA, where we found that the DIY box fan filter at the low and high fan speeds, the CATR, which is clean air delivery rates, are very, very similar to what the stainless steel testing chamber results are, which further improves that, well, I guess like further proves that our low cost box fan filter and in the tent system paired up with the low cost sensor are great alternatives to what usually people would have in the stainless steel chamber. And we also wanted to share with everybody that since our session theme is the community-based demonstration, we wanted to share our work that we actually went out to the Central Washington and we brought our tent with us, the portable tent and the low-cost sensors to demonstrate the DIY box and filter in real life and in the simulation of having the wildfire smoke indoor and having the box fan turned on to see how the DIY box fan filter mitigated or reduced the indoor particle concentration during the event. And we also prepared a video demonstration and we shared with everybody over YouTube and some region-specific handouts that we are having to facilitate the community-wide support, the wildfire mitigation and strategy. So we really wanted to close our presentation by sharing the idea again that the tent sensor system really serves as a great alternative to our really expensive stainless steel chamber, where it's rapid, it's field adaptable method for sensor calibration in the controlled setting, and also it's an alternative low cost exposure chamber system to test the air treatment technology particle removal efficacy. And as Shirley mentioned in the beginning. Not all the systems are perfect, and our tent is subject to wear and tear due to the repeated use, but the baseline testings at the beginning for each experiment can easily correct for the systematic error. And we wanted to control the release of the smoke to prevent the particle sensor to be overloaded, which is also a limitation that we've encountered many times during our experiments. However, we wanted to share that practice makes perfect. As we move towards more experimental trials, I think we had our own way of controlling how much smoke can be released into the tent without overwhelming the particle sensors. And we also wanted to share one more idea of the tent local sensor system. We think that the combination of both devices are a great portability which provides great opportunity to engage participants in the community-based events, where really our goal is to promote air quality information in public health awareness, as well as to prepare everybody, especially people who are in the tribal community during the wildfire events. So that is the end of our presentation. We really welcome comments and thoughts. And for additional questions, please share your thoughts, comments, and ideas in the Q&A or in the chat. And please reach out to us at our emails if you would like to collaborate or have more thoughts in the future.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Lilian and Dr. Shirley. Incredible work. Looks like you already have a few questions in the Q&A, so feel free to answer that when you can. We may still get Kelvin, so we'll wait for him to join, but in the meantime, we're going to move on to Megan Kuhl-Stennes, who is an air policy planner with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Megan has worked with communities to seek solutions to environmental problems for the past 18 years, and now as a project manager for MPCA's Growing Air Sensor Program. Thank you so much, Megan, for being here, and I will allow you to take the floor.
Thank you very much. Is that showing up for everyone?
It's loading, but it's coming up.
Okay. Well, I can start, I guess. Just let me know when it does show, but I'm Megan Kuhl-Stennes. I use she, her pronouns. I work at the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. I think originally with the MPCA or with the EPA conference, I was going to be kind of at the beginning. So this is a little bit more of an overview and a broad kind of look at what we're doing in Minnesota as a, sorry, it's giving me a weird notice. As a regulatory agency working on sensors, because we do not consider sensors, regulatory grade equipment. I'm going to try and share again. It is telling me something went wrong.
We can see it now.
Okay, good. Whew. So that is who I am. A little bit about Minnesota. We are pretty far north, kind of right up there with Massachusetts. That was good to see some snow in other places. And the Minneapolis-St. Paul area was recently featured on Love is Blind, if you watched that. So we've been in a little bit of the spotlight lately. But maybe just for us, Minnesotans love to talk about ourselves. But also Minnesota is in attainment for all criteria pollutants. So we do look at things a little bit differently than places with really high pollution in certain areas or whatnot. We kind of are blessed with some really beneficial meteorology, and we're all also pretty flat for the most part. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring up my notes here. The map on the right there is our areas of concern for environmental justice. So we do have many areas that are defined as people of color and low income communities in Minnesota. And this is where a lot of our sensor work is kind of focused, because these communities have definitely don't have or have disproportionate impact from air pollution across the state. And so a lot of kind of concern and curiosity has come out of these disproportionately impacted communities. But sensor projects have kind of been sparked out of many areas. One community or two kind of communities in Minneapolis really kind of had some questions around air pollution and COVID-19 that sparked a project I'll talk about here in a moment. Definitely just some curiosity, trying to understand as a regulatory agency how sensors could help us do our work, help us improve human health. Watching for wildfire smoke. We are certainly impacted from wildfire smoke in Canada. And many communities are certainly asking if they do have facilities around or near a highway, asking the question, what are we breathing, and wanting to know that. And so potentially trying to use sensors to help answer that questions. We've also heard from communities that they both want to have kind of real-time information to be able to take action. And then many want kind of historic data to look at trends as well, in a more simplified kind of way. So a little bit into our sensor projects here in Minnesota. I'll do a brief overview of all of them. This our original project that got this started was with a number of AQ mesh sensors that measure all criteria pollutants except for lead across Minneapolis and St. Paul. This was the main question was, how can we compare the different zip codes air quality, and is it significant? With that, the outcome, we recognized we needed more localized study. And so zip codes were actually kind of too large of an area to make significant findings. So with that came kind of the next step with the city of Minneapolis kind of took up the reins with a project with communities looking at COVID-19 and the impact on air pollution, as well as a few areas around some facilities around with PM 2.5 and VOCs in particular. And they have a dashboard as well that is newly online with Purple Air, but then they'll get those other sensor data up as well. A little bit more about, one thing I do want to talk briefly here is about, we've had, and I can talk a little more about it later too, maybe if I have time, but using the AQI to display PM data so that people are seeing it within those categories and not directly comparing it to the NACs. So I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. So this is just a screen grab from a wind conversion event we had in Minneapolis in December of 2022. This is their Purple Air map of Minneapolis. Also using those AQ mesh sensors that we had used in our first project. They are kind of now, this is the original map of them, and they are kind of going offline quickly as the project will end in May of this year. But the new component here was the addition of a VOC sensor within that AQ mesh, a total VOC sensor. So we're excited to see those data as well as a Sensit S-Pod, launching 15 Sensit S-Pods for TVOC, and then triggered canister grabs as well. This is really exciting because VOCs can certainly some can be considered air toxics, and so we're kind of taking a deeper look in there, as well as we're kind of looking at sensors in a continuum and starting to see how maybe a canister grab could start to get to toward taking action as well. This is I live in Minneapolis, and so this is the Sensit S-Pod in my backyard. The city of Rochester also has a project going, especially looking at PM, and they're utilizing two different sensor types, of Vicella sensor and Purple Air, and have created a dashboard Rochester's unique in that they are in a city really focused on, or it's where Mayo Health Center is. And so it's really focused on health and this destination medical center and wanting people to make sure that they're being able to take action for their health. So this is a relatively new project. We're excited to continue to work with them more. This is a project that has finished, but through Minnesota State University Mankato, worked with schools in Minneapolis, though, working to equip students with knowledge and skills to understand local air pollution and become future environmental problem solvers. So the report is to come on this one, worked with a number of different sensors, but definitely some benefits and challenges to working in a public school system. Teachers have a lot of demands on them. We also have in the 2023 legislative session, our state legislature appropriated $5 million for community air monitoring pilot grants. These are yet to be announced, but come with an important question to our agency, to the MPCA, about how these monitoring data will impact, these sensor data will impact our regulatory monitoring network. So really a big question that we kind of feel we're going to have a lot of work to do to answer that along the way. As well as we've actually also had purple air sensors in northern Minnesota for quite a while. We started with that because we wanted to, quote, see wildfire smoke coming in from Canada, and those were certainly beneficial in the summers of 2021 and 2023, where a lot of Canada burned. This helps with our air quality index forecasting significantly, and recently the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe purchased 35 purple air sensors, mostly on tribal land, to literally directly help MPCA with our air quality forecasting. So we're really excited to have a more expansive network in greater Minnesota. Some of those challenges, I think why this is interesting is kind of what I call this. And so we treat these data as non-regulatory. It was really interesting to hear how other agencies are looking at them differently. And that, these data cannot directly be compared to the NACs. But what can we do with them? It can give us an idea. We can use it for screening. And so these are really important that we're talking to the public about these data. We don't want to just kind of toss the data out there and not have any sort of action to be able to take on it. And this is an event we see all the time every 4th of July. I think other folks have talked about this, but it has just been torn down. Actually, there was a foundry in a neighborhood. But people might see a spike on July 4th and be very concerned. And we know this is from fireworks. So there's a lot we'll get calls and complaints at our regulatory agency when really it's more of a neighborhood impact from air pollution. So, but it's good to be able to have communication with people and make these connections for people to know what is impacting them. Well, certainly all these are impacting them, but being able to know what's an event that's an enforcement versus a neighborhood kind of event. Then our future work, like I alluded to a little bit, but a lot of screening these data for what we're calling what are these issues? What are the spikes? What's something worthy of exploring, and how do we know? Additionally, that community air monitoring question of how will these data impact our regulatory monitoring network. And we have a mobile trailer coming online in several months that may help in that kind of continuum. If we see some issue that we want to investigate further, that mobile trailer might be able to be a part of that. How do we then, if we need to take regulatory action, what's that continuum? And then we're also working on a new sensor database with a data portal coming, and really great to hear from all of Colorado around that work, and really meant to be around public facing to help to have that exposure to those data as well. And then we're also working on a project looking at VOC sensor comparisons between a number of kind of total VOC and those canister grab that work. So that is everything. I know I kind of flew kind of fast, but thanks for this time, and I appreciate being here.
Unmute. Okay, thank you very much, Megan. That was very interesting. It's good to see the efforts that communities are going in. There's a shout out there to Minnesota. So there's a couple of questions there. So if you can cover those just in the, you know the deal by now. So I can confirm that we've got Kelvin now. So Kelvin's joining us from Breathe Accra in Ghana, and he's going to talk about the community-driven low-cost sensor monitoring network in the Accra metropolitan area. So if you want to open up and share your screen, Kelvin. He was there. Kelvin,
Hello.
Hi. Do you want to share your screen?
Okay. A moment.
Fantastic. Yeah, I can see your presentation just needs to be in presentation mode.
Okay.
Good to go. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Are you okay, Kelvin?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Because you're still on your first slide.
Kelvin, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. So thank you. Lisa, can you see my slides moving?
Yeah, you're now in presentation mode. So over to you.
Okay. Wow. Okay, I think I have a little challenge. I can't see mine moving.
Well, do you want to email it to me? Because you got my email
Okay,
address,
sure.
and then we'll go to Helena, and then we'll come back to you if that's okay with Helena.
Fine with me, if that's what we need to do.
Right. So so flexibility, that's what it's all about. Thank you, Helena. So
Sure.
this is Helena Pliszka from TD Enviro, and you're going to talk about again case studies of community-driven or community-based air quality projects. Don't know where you are from the top of my head. So if you
Where I am physically.
no, where you're talking about, but you'll say.
Oh, sorry. Can you see my screen?
It's coming up now. It should be started
It says it's
sharing.
paused, but I'm not quite sure why.
I've got you started screen sharing.
I'm also having some internet issues on my end, so if I come in and out, please let me know and I can like repeat myself.
Yeah, that's not coming up yet.
Let me try a different way first, and hopefully that will work. Aha.
Yep, got you. Now,
Awesome.
bingo. Fantastic. Over to you.
Thanks, Jim. So my name is Helena Pliszka. I'm an air quality data scientist at TD Enviro. We are the intersection of state, local, and tribal groups, as well as community-based organizations. And we do a lot of work ranging from more technical air quality support, data analysis, operations, to education and training. And I wanted to share some case studies on community-based air monitoring projects that we've been a part of, as well as lessons that we've learned along the way. So starting off, there are a lot of different reasons that communities turn to monitoring their own air quality. And we've kind of identified three themes that exist, especially across our work and what we've seen in the space. So the first is a need for real-time data sharing. Second is a need to validate concerns and build an understanding around local air quality conditions. And a third that we've often seen is around supporting youth education and other kind of forms of informal and formal education spaces. So I'm going to take some time to look at these three themes and show some examples from our work, and then go into the lessons learned from there. So the first, for monitoring for real-time data sharing, really the need here is that you need to understand and measure current air quality conditions. And the objective is to use real-time and current air quality data to effectively inform immediate health protective actions. So this often looks like a public-facing, easy-to-use data dashboard that shows data from often one or two pollutants, but spans a wide coverage or geographic area. So a good example is the Air Now Fire and Smoke map. But even with the data dashboard, it is really effective. Projects are paired with community outreach and education, because you can't just have the data, you need to have interpretation and connection and engagement. So questions around how do you interpret the data after you've shared it, and what actions can be taken associated with the data that is shown. So an example of this in our current work, we are working with 3 YMCAs. This is an incredible project in South LA called Empowering YMCA Communities to Use Data to Increase Awareness and Reduce Exposure. And we're supporting them in monitoring both indoor and outdoor air quality for a couple of years. And there's some interventions involved with that, but there's also the real-time data sharing. So the monitors that we're using are able to show real-time air quality conditions and associated kind of recommended health protective actions, both for indoor air quality and outdoor air quality. And we've seen kind of a tremendous use of this real-time data in informing what activities are happening both indoors and outdoors, the why. So staff will make changes to activities. They will maybe discourage certain kind of physical or strenuous activities indoors or outdoors, depending on air quality conditions, or move to change classrooms or open or ventilate spaces. So we've seen a real connection between what the data shows and how it is really effectively and immediately informing actions that are improving the health and reducing exposure for YMCA members and folks using these spaces. So moving on to the next theme, this is more kind of broader, this monitoring for validation and understanding. So the objectives here are usually around validating community experiences and understanding more around local pollution. So what are background levels, what are sources, what are trends? And I just wanted to make a note here. So this data collection is always, important and is sought after by community groups to validate, right, their lived experience. But there is a certain pressure put on community groups to back up their lived experience with quantitative measurements. So I feel like we live in a world that's dominated by numbers and data, and we pay less attention to stories that also have a really kind of important place in these environments. And so I just wanted to kind of make a note of that aspect of sometimes of this monitoring. And really what's important during these monitoring projects that are more around validation and understanding is an important connection between knowing what we know, given the data, what do we do next? Often these projects look like monitoring multiple pollutants that are really specific to the certain sources of an area, and with that, focusing more on more expensive equipment, dealing with meteorological data, putting an emphasis on siting, and also an emphasis on regular data review and analysis to make the data meaningful to community groups and further kind of communication around projects. So an example of this that we worked on, really had the pleasure of working on with Gwen Smith from the Community for Health and Revitalization. I think I got that acronym wrong, but I'll have it on the next slide. Her group, we worked with her as well as some other local air quality kind of scientists. John Michael Archer featured in this photo as part of a project that was really part of a broader project called AQ Earth that supported community monitoring across the states and also in Mexico City. And West Atlanta was one of the spaces that we worked in. And Gwen Smith, this is her organization, Community Health Aligning Revitalization, Resilience, and Sustainability. They shared a lot of concerns around air quality and environmental pollution concerns in West Atlanta. There are really compounding sources there. You have one of the largest rail yard facilities, you have concrete batch plants, you have Superfund sites, you have facilities that are on the toxic release inventory, you have diesel truck traffic throughways, and not a lot of monitoring. And so they took it into their own hands to focus on high quality, more expensive monitoring, really local in West Atlanta. And with that, took the data and shared it, over a year's worth of data, shared it with community members, and built connections with other folks involved in the space, so local researchers, as well as all the way to the Georgia Environmental Protection Division. So a really impactful project there with Gwen in West Atlanta. And the last theme is monitoring for youth education. So this is often has a lot of different interests and needs associated with it. And monitoring is kind of playing a role in helping information kind of get through and stick. So the formal interests are in schools with kind of understanding the science, the technology behind air monitoring, data analysis, the health impacts of air pollution. And it takes the shape of easy to use curriculum and often has a shorter or smaller kind of handheld air monitoring aspect to help connect all of these dots together. There's also an informal portion or informal kind of space with youth education that's more around kind of maybe summer programs or programs with community groups. Understanding this, the same kind of interests that are shown on the left side, but through more extensive youth-run air monitoring programs and all the way even to youth-run data analysis. So a project that we're a part of took place in the Duwamish Valley in Seattle up in Washington with the Duwamish Valley Association. So this is a group that really focuses on youth-centered education around various environmental issues and engages them with these topics. And one of their interests was around air quality. Again, a lot of different air pollution sources in the area, port sources in the Duwamish Waterway, Amazon warehouses, distribution centers, dense diesel truck traffic. And so they wanted to both learn broadly about air quality, then locally about their own, and then develop their own air monitoring project. And so we led them through all of those stages from learning kind of foundational air quality basics, air pollution basics, air monitoring basics, and then through leading, you know, their own plan. So they developed what routes they would take with their mobile air sensors, where they would put their fixed black carbon devices, how they wanted to share the data, who they wanted to share the data with, which then ultimately kind of determined what analysis approach we took. And they now analyzed their data as well, and were able to grab insights and share with community members and other folks within their kind of audience of interest. So with that, I wanted to share a couple of tips that we've learned throughout working with community groups. I think we have around 6 tips. So the first is teach foundational air quality information. This really will help everyone get on the same page. We all come to this work with different backgrounds, some with more understanding previously of air quality and air pollution than others. And really, it'll help make the whole project make more sense. Like, why are we making certain decisions around what monitors we're choosing, where we're monitoring, how long we're monitoring for? That will all, you know, kind of make more sense if we start with foundational air quality information. The next is get everyone in the room at the beginning. So get everyone involved, from the technical to the communication side, and make sure that people's expectations are aligned. So it would cause a lot of kind of heartbreak at the end if folks came to this with different expectations and those weren't kind of truthed from the beginning with what the project can achieve. And this kind of goes to this third lesson learned, which is discuss what the data can accomplish, because the data that you collect can't do everything that you may want it to achieve. And so be really honest about the possible outcomes, possible successes, and the limitations that data has. And with that too, like emphasize or take time matchmaking the project objective with the technology that you choose for monitoring. So not everything is going to monitor data or collect data that is in support of your monitoring objective. And so really taking the time, not rushing to purchase equipment, taking the time to discuss what is needed from the technology. The fifth lesson is on-the-ground support is really, really vital in terms of both operational maintenance, calibration, as well as a data review, analysis, making sure that the data is of the quality that you need to have to be able to use it to analyze and communicate results. So an important point there. And last one that I wanted to share is these are not side projects. So this takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and genuine engagement, patience, empathy, and ability to have difficult conversations and be uncomfortable, and really kind of absorb this as a true fact before you commit to projects, and see, you know, what you are able to provide if you're supporting or involved in any way in community-based projects. And with that, I wanted to thank all our partners and funders across all these projects that I've mentioned, and pause there and allow others to share. And thanks again for bringing us all together. Really grateful for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Helena, and your flexibility, which you just demonstrated throughout. Some great stuff there. You know, I think Eben said it, begin with the end in mind. You know, a good motto. Put it on a t-shirt. So so now I'm going to bring in Kelvin. Just to let people know, the contact list on Google is now editable, so you can add your names to that. But I'm going to bring in Kelvin, and I'm going to share my screen. If I can find it. Presentation mode in this go. So, Kelvin, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. So over to you. If you just call out next slide and I'll move it on for you.
Great, thank you. So my name is Kelvin Yeboah. I'm with the Public Health Research Group at the University of Cape Coast. And then I'm also the project coordinator for the Breathe Accra Project based in Accra, Ghana. I would like to share our community engagement model with the rest of us on the call. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the Breathe Accra Project is a community-driven initiative that is aimed at improving the air quality in the Greater Accra landscape. The project is anchored on the bigger project that's called the Ghana Urban Air Quality Project. This project was implemented in May 2019 with the aim of deploying a mixture of low-cost sensors and reference-grade monitors to be able to bridge the air quality data gap and also inform policy decisions in Ghana. So with funding from the Clean Air Fund in 2021, we set up the Breathe Accra project. It has three main objectives. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the context for establishing the Breathe Accra project was one, Accra, like many other cities, face several air quality management challenges. One amongst them is the lack of reliable data on air pollution levels in the city due to the limited monitoring capacity. And then also, there seems to be an absence of local evidence on the air pollution effects, which is very critical for increased investment in the area. And then there is a lack of capacity for the assemblies in implementing their air quality management plans. So with this context in mind, we set out to set up the Breathe Accra project. Next slide, please. Now, the project has the vision of accelerating air quality improvements in Accra to protect public health and also to help inspire greater action on air pollution in other African cities. So this is more like a model project for other African cities to also imitate. This vision of accelerating air quality improvement is largely achieved through three folds. One, we seek to ensure that air pollution data or air quality data is openly accessible. And then also, we also want to foster local capacity for monitoring and managing air quality and mounting evidence for its related diseases in Accra. And then also to share technical practices and lessons learned on the project with other African cities. Like I mentioned that we want it to be a model project that other African cities which share the same challenges with air quality management can also implement. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in the past 2 years, we've undertaken a couple of activities. The first is we've been able to deploy about 60 low-cost sensors across the Greater Accra metropolitan landscape. We've also developed a web platform to host the data from the monitoring network. As I said, we want to ensure that air quality data is openly accessible to the public. This web platform enables access to air quality data in real time. And then I'm happy to inform that we are in the process of developing a mobile app that will make it easy for people to get access to air quality data. Also, we've trained some staff from the assemblies that are in the Greater Accra metropolitan area. We've trained the environmental health officers as well as the health promotion officers in air quality monitoring, data collection, data analysis, and visualization. And then also train them in implementation of the air quality management plan because we noticed that there is a lack of capacity in these assemblies to implement these air quality management plans. We also are leveraging on the assembly bylaws and other policies to address air pollution in their respective jurisdictions. Next slide. So we have a deployment map, and then our deployment map is influenced by the structure of every community. So we know that at least in every community, there is a hospital, a marketplace, a lorry station, or a major road, and schools. So this informs the deployment of our low-cost sensors and then our reference grid monitors. So you can see the map of the Greater Accra metropolitan area, and then we have our low-cost sensors neatly interspersed with our reference grid monitors. Next slide, please. So in short, a few of our reference grid monitors. We have the TIOM, and then to my right, we have the AirNote low-cost sensor. Next slide. And then a couple of the other low-cost sensors, mainly Clarity Air. Next slide. Yeah, and then recently we acquired a reference grid monitor, the BAM 1022, which we hope to augment our monitoring capacity in Greater Accra. So we just recently installed it, and it is working at one of our deployment sites. Next slide. Yeah, so this is a sneak peek in the Breathe Accra webpage, where we have our sensors scattered across the landscape of Accra. So we also provide visuals in the form of time series and then heat maps for people to appreciate the data. Next slide. Yeah, so we've been able to achieve a couple of milestones. One is that we've been able to deploy additional low-cost sensors from the initial low-cost sensor we deployed. And also we've engaged beneficiary districts to develop interventions in places that we identify to be hotspots for air pollution. And then also we are using air pollution modeling of data to inform policy decisions. We've also trained environmental health officers in the municipal health directorates of the beneficiary districts in health impact assessment, and then also surveillance for air pollution related diseases. And we've also published a manual. This manual is aimed at guiding the officers to carry out their sensitization exercises, and it is freely downloadable on our website under publications. Next slide. Okay, so when it comes to our community engagement, we approach it in three folds. So we have capacity building and training workshops for our municipal environmental health officers, and then the officers from the health directorate, as well as our health promotion officers. And then also a group of people who are very integral when it comes to Ghana. We call them the local assembly leaders. They are directly interfaced with the community. We also use sensitization workshops where we sensitize groups, market women, children, etc. And then we also carry out risk communication campaigns in markets, transport stations, schools, and other community events like the derbes, health screening activities. Next slide. Yeah, so in short, this is one of our stakeholder meeting that we organized during the Accra's Maiden Air Quality Awareness Week launch in Accra last May. Next slide. And then also we, as I mentioned, that we organized a health impact assessment workshop for the staff of the health directorate, and we were lucky to have Dr. Pierpaolo Mudo from the WHO Bonn office to be present, and then he took us through a series of health impact assessment tools. Next slide. And then also, as a way of tracking the activities by these beneficiary districts, remember I mentioned that we train these officers in air quality monitoring, data collection, data analysis and visualization, and even to the extent of policy implementation. So as a way of keeping track of the activities, we organize the briefing workshop where we bring them back and then try to assess what they've been able to do so far. So this was one of our debriefing workshops in Accra. Next slide. Okay, so like I mentioned, we take advantage of a lot of activities, including debates, school gatherings, youth engagement meetings, and then even the media to spread to make awareness on air pollution. Next slide.
All right.
Yeah, and then we also organize STEM Ideathon for senior high schools. We know that children have bright minds and then they have innovative ideas on how to tackle some of these environmental challenges that we face. So we organize an Ideathon challenge for some selected schools across the country where they presented their ideas on how to mitigate air pollution in their respective communities. Next slide. Yeah. And also we did some risk communication in some markets in the Greater Accra region, Greater Accra Metropolitan Assembly, where we went into the markets and advised the market women on the dangers of air pollution, the sources, and then what they can do to protect themselves. Next slide. Yeah. So some challenges we faced so far, including some of our sensors developing some faults, but we are working around the clock to get them back active on our website. And then also there is waning commitment from the beneficiary districts. And then a couple of theft incidents of our sensors, but we've been able to replace majority of them. And then also we have difficulties with our community engagement and advocacy due to the limited awareness among residents about air pollution. As we went into the markets and then the stations, we got to know that even though air pollution has become very topical, a lot of people still are unaware of the effects. And then also one challenge is policy implementations due to lack of interest from government. And then also the buy-in from government is pretty slow, and it affects our actionable policies. Next slide. Yeah, but then we've learned a few lessons from the project so far. One of them is that we should engage the local communities early in the project to foster awareness and which will encourage behavioral change. We shouldn't wait to start the project before including them. We should move them along while the project is progressing. And then also we've noticed that collaboration is very, very important. So we are not just collecting data and then putting it on the website, but we also need to connect with urban planners, health professionals, how to link these air pollution data to health outcome data. And then also we have learned that investing in the low-cost sensor monitoring network and building local capacity is very important for sustainability and the scalability of the project. And then a very key thing is that visualizing and communicating data effectively through maps, dashboards, helps in the advocacy and raises awareness among the public and decision makers. So we shouldn't just go to them and then tell them that the PM 2.5 levels are high. We should be able to visualize them, bring it to the level that they all can understand and appreciate. Next slide. Yeah, so like I mentioned that we are not just collecting the data. We are leveraging on this data to also inform policies and also build local epidemiologic evidence for other related air pollution related diseases. Next slide. So one of our projects is the respiratory illnesses and air pollution exposure in school children, where we are trying to understand the air pollution exposure experience of children to be able to establish their exposure with respiratory outcomes and also investigate the underlying biological mechanism, So here we are studying two public schools in Ghana and taking some blood samples to do some immunology work to ascertain or investigate the underlying mechanisms of respiratory diseases among them. Next slide.
Okay, 1 minute to go.
Okay, we also have the dietary intervention, where we are testing the dietary intervention for one of the most vulnerable groups, that is street vendors. So when you come to Ghana, a lot of people do a lot of street vending where they sell along the street, especially when there's traffic. So we are testing a nutritional intervention to see how they can also use diet to protect themselves. Next slide. We are also leveraging on data science applications and air pollution data to improve children's outcome. Next slide. And then we're also doing some modeling on of air pollution data and maternal and child health care outcomes in Ghana as well. Next slide. So this is the team led by Professor Kofi Amega, a professor at the University of Cape Coast, myself, Gloria, the communication and publicity officer, Patrick, our data manager, and then Andrews, our software engineer. And then we have 2 research assistants, Christian and then Evans. Next slide. Thank you very much. Next slide.
Okay, so thank you for that, Kelvin, and speeding up at the end, keeping us on time, which is fantastic. So thank you very much. We got there in the end.
Thanks,
So finally, over to Brian. So now, Magi. I wouldn't put it.
It's Maggie. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, from Charlotte, North Carolina, and he's going to be talking about centering community in the development of an air quality dashboard by a North Carolina nonprofit. So over to you. I can see that ready to share. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. You can see that, Jim? Okay. I think everyone can see it. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, all right. I appreciate the organizers and everybody sticking around till the end, and the great responsibility that I have to bring up the anchor on this. A lot of what, I mean, I've had a lot of food for thought now ahead of all my one presentation, and I think some of what we're doing in North Carolina with my co-authors, Deja Wall, who's one of the co-organizers of this conference, and a colleague of ours, Z. Strotterman, both of whom were at nonprofit Clean Air NC. You can see that listed on the slide. Myself, I'm at UNC Charlotte, so I'm a faculty member there with expertise in atmospheric sciences, but I'm also a technical consultant with Clean Air NC on grant-related projects. And a lot of the work we've been doing really, I think, envelops, many of the themes that people have brought up, even in this session, but yesterday as well. So thank you all for speaking out loud some of the difficulties and challenges and successes as well. So let's talk a little bit about one of the successes we've had in North Carolina and that is underway. So before everyone falls off, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the foundation that Deja and Z and I have built upon to get to where we are so far, and that Clean Air NC is built upon. And that is everything from community building and relationships that have been longstanding in the communities all across North Carolina, including our home city of Charlotte. But all these agencies and groups and stakeholders have played some role in where we have landed up to this point. Everything from technical support to community input, and even groups like Purple Air. Adrian has been a fantastic partner in a lot of what we've been trying to do here in North Carolina as well. So I'll step back just a tiny little bit and say, let's just make sure we remember that there are 2 main types of smog affecting the United States. We have ozone smog and particle smog. I think we all kind of know this in this audience, but kind of keep this in front of your mind in the next couple of slides. The EPA summarizes the health-based effects of air pollution levels at any given time through the Air Quality Index, something that is worth reading about if you haven't delved into the details. It's a very interesting construction, and some of you may know about the Nowcast air quality index and the regulatory air quality index, all these different ways that we report this, all in the spirit of protecting public health. Public health is the key word that I want you to focus on as you think about the next slide. And if we look at, say, ozone smog in Charlotte, which has a population of 2.8 million or so in the metropolitan statistical area. You can see this is the graph I made from EPA data at the link at the bottom. And what I'm showing is the percent of days in the warm months of the year in Charlotte, North Carolina, that have yellow or worse ozone air quality index. And so if we were to look at this and say that looks like a good thing, we're getting more and more green days for air quality index for ozone. And if we juxtapose this with the population, then we see Charlotte is an example of, is a microcosm of the success in many urban spaces across the United States, at the very least, where we've got population increasing in many urban spaces and air quality improving in many urban spaces. Not all, but many. And that's an enormous success at the largest scale that we work on. And the scale that we're thinking about is sort of the map on the left. And you see there's two maps on the screen. And one, this is showing a website that's not currently up right now, but it's the CDC Social Vulnerability Index for Mecklenburg County. Mecklenburg County is the home of where Charlotte, North Carolina sits, kind of right in the middle where it says Charlotte. And you can imagine that we have two visions for the county just from the CDC tool. One is the social vulnerability index at the county scale, and the other is, if we disaggregate it down to the census block scale, we see a very different version of the monolithic view of a county. In other words, if we go to a neighborhood, the experience might be very different than the regulated experience, because we regulate the world at the scale of counties or more often, and we live in counties at more like a census block scale, and even that is bigger than the sort of lived experience of any given person's neighborhood. And so immediately that is a disconnect that I think many people have highlighted, is this idea that the lived experience may be very different than the regulatory experience. And then the research starts to back this up, and we look at the research from the paper that's linked at the bottom there with the words. You could search for that, or I can point that out to you if you just send me an email. But what I'm showing here are the air pollution exposure disparities in the United States. Sorry, let me move my little screen thing here. Hide floating meeting control. There we go. The graphic shows, first of all, the average exposure for the United States population as a whole, regardless of race. And that's the black line that goes across, and it's at a measurement at a number of 5 micrograms per meters cubed. So for those that don't know, that would be referring to PM 2.5 air pollution. And if I can click through this, there we go. So there's the number. The NAAQS value for the annual NAAQS, at least for PM 2.5, is 9 micrograms per meters cubed. And if we focus on the red bars, we can see that Black populations and Hispanic populations in the United States are exposed to more PM 2.5 air pollution than they cause. Immediately, you think, oh, that doesn't seem fair. And then if we go to the other part of this graphic, it shows that the white populations in the United States are exposed to less pollution than they cause. And fundamentally, this research and other studies that have followed from it, and studies that preceded this even, show that minority populations in the United States are exposed to more air pollution than they're responsible for emitting. So there's a disparity, is how I word that, and how we think about this within the scientific literature. So at the level of a county and the regulatory level, say, like if we have this image of Mecklenburg County with Charlotte and the success from ozone air quality, it's a good news scenario, right? We see this and we celebrate these pieces of good news. But the bad news is some of the details, and that is that regulated air pollution is not the only concern. There's a lack of sub-regional monitoring. There's other unregulated or even less regulated air pollutants or industries. The lived experience might be very different than the regulatory experience. And we think of all this as related to, in many cases, the environmental injustices that have arisen from redlining and urban renewal programs in the United States from the 1930s to the 1970s. And I'll come back to that point in just a little bit. So Clean Air NC, the nonprofit that I work with and that Deja and my our co-author Z Strouderman are all a part of, we competed for and received funding from a group called EJ Data Fund. The EJ stands for Environmental Justice. And what we proposed and were awarded funding for was to begin to wrangle the data that we have in North Carolina together with the relationships that Clean Air NC has built over the period of 10 to 15 years into a data story. And I'll go through some of the objectives and then preview what we've done, and that's how I'll finish my talk today. So the objective is we're going to create a platform for accessing air pollution sources and geographic data across North Carolina that empowers, first and foremost, frontline communities, but then to every North Carolinian as well. The key design element is that our development cycle is informed by regular input from frontline community members around North Carolina. So we recruited and provided stipends for stakeholders in North Carolina via the funding that we were awarded from the EJ Data Fund. This is community-informed technical development, and it's led, importantly, this is part of our proposed work, is whatever we develop is led by a trusted source in North Carolina. This is not a state agency. It's not a federal agency. It's not a local agency. This is a nonprofit that specializes with a part of their mission being to advocate for clean air for all North Carolinians. So I'll say stay tuned, but I'm going to give you a preview of kind of where we are right now. We're actually very actively working in the rollout of the first stage of this dashboard for North Carolina. So the splash screen, the kind of where you landing point once this dashboard becomes public, looks like North Carolina. And across the state, we see what are air quality indices for each of the 100 counties in North Carolina. It's a big state, goes from west to east, across from the Appalachian all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. And if we zoom into some of the details of this, we see that if we look at the individual sensors, in fact, what we're basing this on are the fairly dense network of purple air sensors all around our state. And this has been an effort that I've been a part of since its inception at Clean Air NC. Deja has been leading that effort for many years now through all the different roles that she's had at Clean Air NC. And you can see we have a lot of sensors. Not all of these are Clean Air NC sensors, but all of them are purple air sensors. And so we've got a lot of information pouring in at the state level, and for those not familiar with purple air, after all these talks, that's what it looks like there at the bottom. All of them are showing the air quality index based on what the purple air measurements are showing. And we do a lot of part of my work with Clean Air NC is the quality assurance stages. And of course, this has to be in partnership with more than just me. We put the purple air sensors out into the field in partnership, in this case, with our county or our local air authority. This is Mecklenburg County Air Quality. And they even went so far as to build essentially like a glorified chicken coop that has wasps in it, but also is able to house purple air sensors and allow people like me and my colleagues at Clean Air NC and anyone really who wants to test their low-cost sensor in close proximity to the regulatory grade sensors that are housed in that giant facility in the background of the chicken coop. So you can see it sort of in the background there. That's the local most instrumented site in our county. And in there is a BAM 1022, if you're wondering. And so we've got a lot of co-located, a lot of data from these co-location efforts, over 40,000 hours. Actually, I didn't actually calculate the number because I haven't updated it in about 2 years, but I don't know what the number is. It's a lot. We've got at least 5 or 6 years of data. So the quality assurance underlies a lot of what we're trying to do with this AirKeeper dashboard. A big part of this is beginning to layer more than just air quality into the overall spectrum of environmental stressors that may be affecting any community. And for those that have heard that wording before, of course, that should ring a bell as indicating an interest in quantifying the cumulative impacts of multiple environmental stressors on every community, including the frontline communities of North Carolina. So we see air quality information at the county scale in this image here, just because it's more visually easy to look at, but underlying that is the Justice 40 tracks, which show vulnerable communities, at least communities that are more vulnerable than other communities. And that's an index based on a federal, and possibly now defunct index. I'm not sure because of the administration change. In addition to that geographic layer, we look at all the other things that are happening within our state. And those are proximity to either potential or actual sources of air pollution, everything from permitted sources based on the state or local agencies we have in North Carolina, agricultural locations like the orange dots. If you're wondering, you're thinking, wow, what is going on in East Central North Carolina? And for those that haven't been to North Carolina is the home to enormous number of swine farms, highly concentrated in East Central North Carolina. There's also poultry farms embedded within all those as well. And I'm happy to talk offline a little bit about what we're thinking on that. Other potential sources and actual sources of air pollution that could be affecting communities and contributing to the overall environmental stressors suite are solid waste landfills, waste treatment plants, and we provide the opportunity for any user to map this into the space that they live, and of course zoom into the map so that they're not just looking at North Carolina as a whole. So when we zoom in, it looks a little bit like this. You see the sensors individually. The square blocks indicate the regulatory sensors that we have for PM 2.5 here in Charlotte. Charlotte is right in the middle there. It's the city that's surrounded by a ring freeway, like so many cities in the United States. You can see the purple air sensors are the little circular symbology, and we have them all over, and I continue to try to deploy these. And as soon as we deploy them, they become a part of this overall Airkeeper dashboard. We can overlay in this one zoomed in example where all the permitted sources are. This is not just air permits, but this is Clean Water Act permits, Safe Water Drinking Act, and RCRA as well. So all the permits that could potentially be affecting and stressing any particular community might play a role in the suite of information that we bring to bear for community members to empower themselves and to partner with them to empower them to advocate for their neighborhood and perhaps considerations for permitting process or zoning process, whatever may lead to better conditions. And of course, this is a very long timescale type payoff. We overlay things like the Justice 40 tracks, and we can see that the vulnerable communities in Charlotte are in a somewhat crescent-shaped pattern that are arc around the downtown area. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, what is that? Well, if we overlay the demographic layers, we can see that when we darken that to see the actual image, we see that the same crescent shape corresponds to majority Black population neighborhoods in Charlotte. And this is back to the environmental injustices that have arisen from redlining practices of the 1930s in America as the federal government attempted to segregate and did segregate every single urban space in the country, including Charlotte. So Charlotte is not unique in this if you're not familiar with US history. And the empowerment part is not only that they have to use this on a device, but they can walk away with a printed report. This is kind of similar or inspired to some degree by EJ Screen, which we all hope comes back online through the EPA's sanctioned sites. And once the interaction continues, they could print this map, they could print the report, they could report observations, all of which Clean Air NC plays a role in brokering the information, or at least providing more insight as we act as contacts for and trusted sources of the information. So I'll finish, I think, right on time, maybe, I'm not sure. I'm a teacher, so I have an instinct for all time. So how do we keep our skies blue for everyone in North Carolina? And as so many have said in so many different parts of our two-day conference here, data is a starting point. And what we say is that data stories are the goal. So I will stop there. The QR code on the top goes to my contact information, but you can also contact Deja Wall, who's one of the organizers of this Sensors Conference. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. So I guess it's down to me now to just to wrap up and bring this quite amazing feat. I'd say I was late to the party. So if the other members of the team could turn their cameras on, just so you can see who's responsible for this. So it was a significant effort, and just because you didn't hear people talking or moderating doesn't mean they weren't doing anything. There was an awful lot of work going on behind the scenes. So thank you to everybody, and not everybody's here now. People have dropped this into the middle of their working week, their normal week. So this became a hobby that they had to swerve other things for. So just to thank everybody for that. And we just got a couple more slides just to wrap up, because we've got does anybody want to say anything who I'm looking at the moment? Just while I'm doing that. No. So, right, if I'm just going to. So a lot of people have mentioned about just to thank all the different organisations, Air Gradient, Clarity, Clean Air, Desert Research Institute, Imperial College in London, Just Air, OpenAQ, and a couple of things coming up. So let me just turn it into a proper slideshow. There is a meeting and this is a real meeting in real life. The Air Centres Conference in Bangkok in May. So that's open for registration. So that's available. So there is a link down there, but you can just Google ASIC, and that will ASIC 2025 air quality. It will find it. And then there's a virtual to sign up, and this is one of the IGAC offshoots, sensor integration into air quality monitoring, the role of the World Meteorological Organization, the global scenario. So I'm sure that's of interest to very many of the people out there. There is a Zoom link there and a QR code that you can see, and there's a couple of the speakers. And with that is just to thank people. But there was, we're just giving people, because a lot of people have asked about this, just to connect to each other. So the QR code in the top corner is actually the link to the Google Doc that we had up. So if you want to, if anybody wants to connect to us, we'll have it open for a few days, and then we'll close down, obviously, for and it will just be for the people who attended and have signed up for that. So I'm just going to check on the chat. Was there anything else in the chat? And we've also got, you will see, there's lots of things coming through on the chat now. So there's a final survey that we want attendees to fill out, but we will circulate that later. And also the videos that we've done, they get produced not quite instantaneously, but in this day and age, it's pretty impressive what we're doing, given that I guess a conference supplier would have charged us thousands of dollars for what we've managed to do. So we're 5 past the hour now, so we've overrun by 5 minutes. 5 minutes in 8 hours, that's not bad, I think. So I don't know if anybody wants to, John or Ryan or Colleen, want to say anything else? Or Eben? No?
I would like to just have a couple words to once again thank the folks at the EPA who really put this together and then were unable to hold it, right? And they're under a lot of pressure right now. So we want to really send a lot of love out to our colleagues at the EPA. And without the pre-work that they had done on this, we could never have pulled it together. And I want to personally thank the other members of this group who pulled together something magical in just a couple of weeks. I'm really quite amazed at what a group of willing, hardworking people can do in short time. It's an incredible community.
Thank you, John. And just to say, to quote you, the love comes from outside of the your border. So there's lots of support globally for what's happening in the US at the moment. So with that, I'll just thank everybody for attending. It's been a fantastic effort. Again, thank you to Ryan for everything that's been going on in the background. It's certainly kept him busy. So now he can go and have a cup of coffee without having to stare at multiple screens. So I'm going to sign off now. But once you've got the contact list, use it. That's what it's there for. I think the most important thing about this, and like John said, thanking the EPA for doing all the hard work, the legwork. We almost take the glory for being here now, But the key word, I think, is community. We are a community, and we should think about that. We're a community who make these measurements, but we want to work with communities. So I think that's the key word. Certainly for me, it's been inspirational.